All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back. We are getting a lot done today, and by a lot I mean I took a nap and it was amazing. So we're also working on the fuel system again. I picked up a couple different things for the fuel system. I got the new regulator installed, put the new regulator in, and it was leaking a lot of gas, and I wasn't really too happy about that. But got that all cleaned up, and I checked it again, and it's regulating it again at like 70 psi. So I'm thinking it's something to do with the regulator on the rail being bypassed and using an additional regulator. Like it's almost like it's double regulated and running it up too high. So what I'm trying to do right now is, because I want to use the boost reference regulator, somebody suggested just run it how it is because it's 45 psi, so that should be okay. And 70 psi would really be okay also, but it just depends how I tune it. So I really just want it to be regulated at, I want it to be adjustable, and I want it to be right. I don't want it to just be something that I'm settling with. So trying something different. So here is the old regulator piece that goes inside of the rail. So I snipped the end off of it, and to try to allow a little bit more flow, and cutting this little thing off reduced it by like 10 or 20 pounds. I also took this little filter out, that reduced it like another 10, and there's this little O-ring that's inside there. So I took all that stuff out, and that's what brought it down from 130 down to about 80 or 85, just doing that little thing. But it was still too high, so that's when I took out the old regulator, checked it just with a straight run back to the tank, and it was at 45 pounds. So what I'm trying to do now is do a little bit more, because if I gut this part anymore, the spring and the diaphragm and all that stuff is going to fall out, and then it's going to leak. And I don't want to do that. So there's actually there's a forum that I saw online. A guy like gutted this whole thing and then filled this thing with solder. And I'm not sure if I want to do that, because in that forum it said it was also still rested at 45 psi. So even though he completely gutted that thing, it was still at 45 pounds unregulated. So what I'm trying to do now is something a little bit different. I don't know if this is going to work yet, but we're gonna try it. So I spent a little bit of time, and I'm basically like porting the inside of my fuel rail here. So this section where it comes from the 3/8 over to the 5/16 return, I'm thinking that there's just a really restricted passage. You can see it goes from one port on the left over to the right. This used to be just a little tiny hole. So I used a little Dremel bit on my drill press and just been kind of notching away at this thing. It really opened up that passage because I want it to be a clear 5/16 passage over to this thing over here. So I want to create a whole bunch of room. So that's what I'm doing. I don't know if it's going to work, so we'll try it. And I did wash this thing out very well, ran it under some sinkage and cleaned it out, and there was a bunch of crap inside there, so I'm glad I did it. Works, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So my backup plan, if it doesn't work, is install this little doohickey. So this would be feed coming from the tank, the bottom would be going back up to the rail, and then this would be for the return, and that's where I would put the regulator on. So that should work. It would be a returnless style rail, so I'd have to go back to my old rail without the return on it, but that's the backup plan. If that doesn't work, I was gonna go with that. That's why I got those extra fittings and started working on it. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to switch back and just see if it works or if I can get it to work. So that's what we're trying to do. Holy moly, that was a lot of explanation. Well, guys, we got some not so great news. Didn't do nothing. So it still reads 70 psi with the regulator on, turned basically all the way out. But check out how good this thing starts with 70 psi. Okay, so that was 70 pounds of pressure. So what I want to do right now for you guys is I'm going to cut one of the wires for the pump, the second pump. So it may be reading high because there's two pumps running at idle, I don't know for sure. So I'm going to take a chance on it, and I'm going to cut one right now just to see what happens. If that's the case, and it actually comes down to a decent pressure with one pump running at idle, I will wire the second pump into a switch. Let's try it. Alright, so we're underneath now. And because somebody was super pissed the other day about me using a tin snips to cut wire on my wire harness video, we're going to do that and see how good this works. Snip! Look at that! Snippy, snippy. Precision cutter. Alright, so we got one of the wires cut for the pump, and let's go and see what happens. If not, I'll solder that thing back together. Alright, so this is interesting. Let's check this out. I already did this, so I know what's going to happen. But this was reading like a 13.6 before with both pumps running. I honestly did not think it was going to make that much of a difference, but it's like just above 40 psi from 70. So it dropped significantly. So part of that might be because it's actually pushing some fluid pressure back through the pump that's not running now. But I think with this setup, I'm going to see if I can get this thing to run at around 60 psi with the adjustment, and we'll see what happens. Alright guys, and since I'm not really convinced yet if I want to cut a hole in the bed, I've been working on this, so check this out. I got some 2x4s on top of the trailer hitch. I can basically do that myself pretty quickly, so that's pretty cool. I don't know, that's pretty fast. I think that's pretty effortless. So as long as I had those boards or something like that, I'd be able to do this pretty quick by myself. So yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know if I would always have the boards with me, but I usually don't always have the tools with you either, so even to get like the bed bolts and stuff out, you probably still have to run and get stuff, but I don't know. That seems like it works pretty easy. That's probably actually easier, like snap 6 bolts out and then flip that thing down. It's probably actually easier than dropping the tank or removing a panel to get in through the bed, so I kind of like that. Let me know what you guys think. Alright, so I'm going back in because I want to change the lines that are inside. I bought that submersible fuel line. Ooh, there's still quite a bit of pressure there. I wasn't really expecting that. But I guess I wasn't expecting it because the other times that I took this apart, the lines inside the tank blew off, so there wasn't any pressure. So that makes sense. Also want to make sure my fuel level sender is right because it was stuck on full. So I got a 1/2 inch and I got a 3/8 inch submersible fuel line. So that's what I'm going to put inside here. So I'm going to have to pull this whole sender out. The whole shabizzle. Yeah, now I slam this hose clamp on. That actually seems like it's holding okay, but see how soft the outside of this push lock is? It's like real squishy, real soft, but it finally stayed on there now. Oh, and that makes sense why the sender is not accurate, because it broke off. Makes perfect sense. I thought I heard something fall. Actually, when I was working on this before, I thought I heard something fall, but we had just slapped it together and wasn't really worried about it at the time because I was just trying to get it home. So it must have been that. Yeah, see how easy that comes off? That's supposed to be a push lock, and I just loosened this thing up and it just slid right off. But guys, for reference, I do have the same push lock hose on the supply going up to the fuel rail. So there was some people kind of bashing the push locks after they saw that, and I wouldn't say the push lock is bad, it just shouldn't be inside the tank. Let's see if I can find the sender. Yeah, the fucker's just sitting here, just floating away, guys. Look at that. That thing's probably junk now. That sucks. I'll have to look at that and see if I can get that thing to work. Might have to get a new little sender piece. That's unfortunate. Okay, so I wasn't planning on getting this technical, but let's do it. So this thing had completely fallen apart. So this is like the little contact inside here that swipes through this little box. So this pivots up and down for the level. And this thing had completely fallen off of here. And this, I don't even know how this thing fell out of here, but it slides in this little groove and locks into place. And then you can see the contact side has some friction marks on it, so that I can tell goes in this way. But then the thing is, this float is going to have to come all the way through here on this other side and then lock into place. Somehow this whole thing managed to completely fall apart. So now that's locked in there. So this should be okay. Swipe her back and forth. And then I should be able to take this, slide the rod through the back side, and clip this thing into here. And then this should be, that should be okay now. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe we'll give it a little test. So when I turn the key, it should go all the way down. Okay, it's going all the way up. What's going on? Alright, so we'll just double check that this thing works. Level sender is down. Turn the key on. Should go empty. I'll flip the sender up. And we'll go full. So that's working now. Alright, so I do have all these hoses replaced now. What's interesting is the side that I had the barb on of this push lock hose is actually pretty good. But the push lock side, it's like all soft and squishy and falling apart. So this is the one I had the clamp on. This one's okay. I did put the clamp on after, that's why there's a mark there, but it's all like squishy and peeling apart, and that's probably why it fell off. But I did go ahead and switch to some of this submersible fuel line injection hose. This is the 1/2 inch, and then the other one is it says Earl's on it. Where the hell did I see that? This says Earl's Vapor Guard injection hose. So this is some 3/8 submersible, 1/2 inch submersible. That should be okay. It comes down straight out. I'll throw it back in. All right, so everything is in, ready to run. I did get it to come down a little bit more on the pressure. I got it around 68. So I was shooting for 60, 68. I think is pretty good. I'm kind of interested to see what it runs like with a little bit higher pressure. I'm curious if I get the same result from a little bit less duty cycle on the injectors. I'll be curious to see what that looks like. So let's give it a fire, see what it looks like. I also have the fuel pressure regulator hooked up to the compressor right now, so I'll be able to work the compressor and we can watch the fuel pressure increase. So I'll show you what the boost reference would be simulating basically. That I had here on the regulator was a little bit loose, so it popped off. That's why it shot up and then popped back down quick. But that's pretty much how the system would work. As the boost pressure increases, it increases the fuel pressure to compensate for the boost. So everything's working pretty good. Gonna test it out, drive it around tomorrow, get everything dialed in, and we'll be done with it. And I wanted to show that because that's a pretty common question. Like, what do the pumps run at? How much current do they draw? So this is like just above 30 amps, 8 gauge wire, 67 PSI. So at 45 PSI, it pulled about 28 amps. At 67, it pulls right around 30. So when it was set at 120 PSI, 130, it was actually pulling about 39 amps at that point. So that question gets asked a lot, so there it was on a video and my experience with it.